Resume our regular scheduled meeting at 10 o'clock. Item 7, new business. This week.
Sorry, just getting the tape ready. We have a public hearing. Item 7A. Consideration of the adoption of the following: certain amendments to the Los Animas County land use regulations.
Procedure we'll use is planner will go first. Any questions, then we'll open it up for public comment. Guess we'll try to make a decision. What's my thought first?
She disappeared.
So ready? Ready to start over again?
Yes, that's a good idea. We're public hearing scheduled for 10 a.m. to consider certain amendments to the Los Animas County land use regulations.
Process we'll use today is the planner will go first. If you have any questions, then we'll probably open it up for public comment. And then go from there, everybody testifying today will be sworn in by the attorney.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth during the course of your proceedings?
I do.
And if you state your name for the record, please.
Martin Landers, with Plan Tools. Good morning, Chair, members of the Commission. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a resolution recommending approval of the amended land use regulations. Since 2010, there has been one amendment to the land use regulations dealing with adjustment to the setback associated with cell towers. Today we're proposing 2 additional amendments to the land use regulations. One associated with new floodplain regulations, and the second with permits for 1041 and special use permits. Let me begin with the floodplain regulations. The county adopted the existing floodplain regulations back in 1998 as a part of the 1041 regulations. And in 2010, the Colorado Water Conservation Board adopted revised rules and regulations for floodplains in Colorado that were effective January 2011, and those are administered by the Department of Natural Resources. Those rules provide for a higher level of floodplain management to help reduce risks to people and property. The Department of Natural Resources has provided a 3-year transition period for communities to adopt the new floodplain regulations and to retain compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program criteria. Non-compliance with that NFIP criteria could result in higher flood insurance, premium policies, as well as particular sanctions associated with access to federally backed loans and grants in the event of a flood occurring. The new chapter is called Flood Damage Prevention Regulations, and these have been prepared and inserted into the land use regulations as Chapter 10. And they are consistent with Colorado Floodplain Damage Prevention Ordinance that was provided by the Department of Natural Resources as a model. These new regulations are in compliance with NFIP guidelines, and they have been reviewed by the Department of Natural Resources. So existing chapters 10 10 through 12 have been renumbered as chapter 11 through 13 of that edition. And we've also made some associated amendments to chapter 1.13 definitions. We've added the term addition, and to chapter 4.13 flood control, where we have substituted flood development permit versus a special use permit. We've also updated cross-references and table of contents. Briefly, these new floodplain regulations are more extensive than the current regulations. They're much clearer in terms of the purpose, the methods of reducing flood losses. There's an extensive list of definitions. There are duties identified for the floodplain administrator, and in this case would be plan director for the county. There's also a detailed variance procedure, along with several pages of standards, both general and specific, associated with special flood hazard areas, areas of shallow flooding, designated floodways, alteration of a water course, properties that have been removed from the floodplain by field activity, subdivisions, and critical facilities such as schools and public facilities, law enforcement facilities, those types of things. In addition to the floodplain regulations, that new chapter, there are two additional amendments. One has to do with the 1041 regulations, as I mentioned. The special use permit is now set up so that it can be processed concurrently with the 1041 permit. So that will help streamline the development review process, so that when an applicant comes in for a 1041 issue, which is a matter of statewide interest, such as a pipeline going in through the county, they are also required to get a special use permit for that use. So now they can, rather than doing a special use permit separately through the planning commission and then going to the board, they're coming back and doing a 1041 permit later, they can do all that. We've also codified the cell tower distance into the actual document now that was approved by the board back in 2011. So those are the additional amendments. The Planning Commission at its meeting on May 6th recommended approval of a resolution for the new land use regulation amendments. And if approved by the Board of County Commissioners, these updated regulations would take effect immediately.
So there are no problems with doing everything simultaneously. I mean, there's no, we're not going to get hooked somewhere on these 1041s where we can kind of do it all at once. We're not setting ourselves up for some sort of catastrophe down the road.
No, not if you do it concurrently. Basically, the way it works is that there would be an application for both the special use permit and the 1041. It would go to the Planning Commission, and they would act on the SUP part because they don't act on the 1041 piece. If they were to deny the special use permit, then the 1041 would not proceed. If they approve it, then they proceed together to the board. But the board would first hear the resolution on the special use permit. If the board denies that, then they wouldn't even bother with the 1041. If they approve that resolution on the special use permit, at the same hearing, they would act on the 1041 permit. So it's just a way to make the process work a little bit smoother in that regard.
Thank you.
That concludes the overview that I have. If there's any questions or if I can provide additional detail, I'd be happy to.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Valdez, do you have any comments?
So Commissioners, actually, there was a resolution that was forwarded to administration. The board can act on the resolution provided from that review. So we take action on the resolution that you should have.
We've opened it up for public comment. It's 10:10, I believe. Is there any public comment? Not hearing any public comment. We'll close public comment. Ms. Fabian, would you read the resolution, please?
A resolution resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Los Animas County, Colorado, adopting certain amendments to the Los Animas County Land Use Regulations. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of Los Animas County, Colorado, parentheses, the board, close parentheses, has authority to, pursuant to CRS 30-28-101 et sec, and in particular CRS 30-28-12, 30-28-113, 30-28-115, and 30-28-116 to adopt and amend a zoning plan for all or any part of the unincorporated territory of the county, and to adopt and amend regulations to implement the same. And whereas the board has previously adopted the revised Los Animas County Land Use Regulations effective August 1, 2010. And whereas floodplain management regulations intended to prevent loss of life and property as well as economic and social hardships that result from flooding are needed that adhere to the minimum standards of both the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, and the state of Colorado. And whereas clarification regarding the concurrent processing of special use and 1041 permits is needed to provide for a more efficient development review function. And whereas the Los Animas County Planning Commission, acting in an advisory capacity to the board, did determine that amendments to the land use regulations were needed to further the intent of floodplain management and to better provide for the development of Los Animas County. And whereas by Commission Resolution Number blank dated May 6, 2013, the Los Animas County Planning Commission has certified to the board certain amendments to the land use regulations with the recommendation of approval of the same, a copy of which is attached hereto as Exhibit A and fully incorporated herein by this reference. And whereas the board has conducted a public hearing on May 21st, 2013 in the chambers of the county commissioners in the Los Animas County Courthouse for receipt of public comment on the proposed amendments to the land use regulations. And whereas public notice of the hearing was given by publication in a newspaper of general circulation in the county at least 14 days prior to the public hearing as required by CRS 30-28-112 and 30-28-116. And whereas at the public hearing, testimony was taken from all persons appearing and wishing to give testimony. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners has taken into consideration the recommendations of the Los Animas County Planning Commission and the public testimony. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners finds that the adoption of the amendments is in the best interest of the county and its residents, and that these amendments are required for the continued preservation of the public health, safety, and general welfare, and for the control of orderly growth of the unincorporated territory of Los Animas County, Colorado. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Los Animas County, Colorado that Section 1, Revised Zoning Resolution adopted. The Los Animas County Land Use Regulations, a copy of which is attached hereto as Exhibit A, and fully incorporated herein by this reference, are hereby amended. Section 2, Effective Date. This resolution shall be effective upon adoption by the board. Upon motion made and seconded and an affirmative vote, this resolution was adopted this 21st day of May, 2013.
Questions? Comments? Any motion to approve, disapprove?
Motion to approve resolution number 13-044, adopting certain amendments to the Los Animas County Land Use Regulations.
Second. Motion, Ms. Fatty.
The motion is approval of resolution number 13-044, adopting certain amendments to the Los Animas County Land Use Regulations.
Roll call.
Commissioner Loudon?
Yes.
Commissioner E.R.A.
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We have a motion to resume executive session. So. Roll call.
Commissioner Vega? Commissioner Loudon?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
You got anything that says, that'll be at least 10 Since couple last, these meetings, just fix each other.
One time, so.